carries R13, the three cylinders are differently arranged, with the barrel again being the largest, followed by a nonlinear reverse cone, then the small central cylinder of the lower half of the left-hand joint, then a somewhat larger third cylinder of the right-hand joint. This last device, a convenient method for reducing the oversize of the lowest 12th, has been used since by other makers. The idea was later used by Anthony Gigliotti for the Selmer 10G and has since been variously adapted in all Selmer soprano clarinets. A lot of information to read. Oh, hello there. One of my many books about clarinets acoustics. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to have a very quick discussion about Selmer Paris clarinets. In my buffet line of information, I'm going through really detailed information, but for Selmer Paris clarinets, I'll go through some real quick information about them and the various differences between the vintage clarinets with Selmer Paris. Nowadays, I'm mostly a buffet person, but years ago, I really liked Selmer Paris clarinets. As a matter of fact, I had one model of each evolutionary design Selmer Paris had in up to the late 1800s. At one time, I had at least 5 center tone clarinets about the same time. And if you read my video about the center tone clarinet and the evolution of them, I should have the link here. You can see how they varied. But what we're going to talk about today is dealing with Selmer Paris clarinets and what the changes are as they evolve throughout the mid to early 1900s through more modern ones. We're going to start really with the Model 55. I had a BT before, I never measured it. I also had a K series before, never measured that, like I do with the buffet clarinets nowadays. Anyways, a 55, it had a 15 millimeter bore, I believe. It was cylindrical, large tone holes. You blow a lot, you get a lot of noise around you, of course. And had a weird large register vent, basically. Then they transitioned to the center tone in 1954, and that was, of course, a large bore clarinet again. The serial numbers N, O, P, Q. Yes, I do know my alphabet. It starts with like A and ends in Z. They were cylindrical bore, 15 millimeters or 15.1 millimeters in that area. But the later models, the R and the S, as you would see in my Selmer video that I pointed to earlier, they have a slightly reduced bore to 14.9 millimeters in a reverse taper design. So it starts out big and goes down small, usually in a reverse taper bore. This is really to counter what Buffet was doing with their reverse taper bore, finding out that it was actually more controllable in many ways. The Series 9 then continued on with that as a large bore clarinet using a 14.9 millimeter bore with a reverse taper bore design, which evolved from the later center tone clarinets. The 9-star had undercut tone holes, which is phrasing in that book there. And it reduced the bore diameter some more to 14.65, and it was designed as a competitor to the Buffet R13 clarinet. Moving on, then we go to Series 10, which was around 1970s and the 70s. It had a cylindrical bore for some reason, undercut tone holes throughout both joints. The 10G, which came out in the 70s and 80s, this was designed by Anthony Gigliotti. That's what the G is for. Basically, there was a issue of the clarinet, I believe it was in 1999, where it describes his visit to the Buffet factory. And he tried like dozens of clarinets, and he selected, I don't know, less than half a dozen of the best ones. And then he took them to Hans Moning to tune and voice them for his orchestra playing. What he wanted to do was create a clarinet that didn't need any work. Good luck on that, right? Considering what he went through. And that's where the 10G was born. It was basically a Moningized Buffet aspired clarinet, basically. So It wasn't an exact copy of a buffet, but it was inspired by it. It had smaller bore size, more undercutting to the tone holes, and tone hole placement was different than the R13, so things varied. Moning introduced the reverse tapered barrel, which was standard on the 10G. The 10G had two generations, though. The first generation had a 14.52 millimeter bore, and the second generation a 14.6 millimeter bore. Now, later on, you also had the regular Series 10. You also had the 10S and 10S2, which also had a reverse taper bore. And the 10S2 had a smaller bore than the 10S. So if you're ever looking for this stuff, you'll have to write this down. And then you get into the more modern ones, the recitals, which had a very small reverse taper bore. It was like 14.35 millimeters, I think. And it had really thick walls. It was a really heavy clarinet. Then they had the signature, which is even more different, the Artiste, which is even more different. I'm going to have specific reviews of those two put together because I actually reviewed those in the past. But that's just a quick rundown so you can understand what the differences are of the more vintage Selmer Paris clarinets. That's really all I had today. I want to thank you for listening. Any questions or comments, please post them down below. Don't forget to give a thumbs up, like, share, and subscribe. Gotta love knowledge, gotta love life, gotta love clarinets too, right? We'll see you next time.